Innovation Update. To get into the session, as usual, just click on the blue preview button and wait for the session to start. Also, don't forget you can take notes on the right-hand side and then export them directly to your inbox by clicking on the export button located at the top right-hand corner of your view.
Kia ora everyone, my name is Ewan Howden. I'm Director of Innovation here at Education New Zealand, and joining me is my colleague John Lexon, who's Director of Global Education Partnerships. And we're here to talk about looking towards the future. Grounding all of our presentation is the Strategic Recovery Plan from the New Zealand Government around international education, and particularly about transforming to a more sustainable future state. The essence of this is how can we get better ability and better channels and offerings and products to give access to our learners and our partners to New Zealand education, no matter where they are in the world. Because if one thing was really shown through the COVID experience was that New Zealand was quite exposed with a heavy reliance on students having to come to New Zealand to get that New Zealand education experience. And so there is a range of products and services activity. One is around exploring new services and products that might be more relevant to people who may choose to stay at home or only have a part experience here in New Zealand, and also about how we can actually access learners and for our partners online. And then of course, some offshore pathway initiatives, which John will talk about more later.
Kia ora koutou everybody, hello. It's a pleasure to be with you here today. We just wanted to take this moment to underline the New Zealand philosophy and tikanga Māori worldview in terms of how we take an approach to partnership in creating and delivering innovative education solutions for students. So here you can see a diagram that reflects tukutuku or reciprocity, as well as hoko hoko or trade and exchange. And this diagram really just emphasizes that for us to succeed globally, we need to partner well in terms of connecting with others on what we have to offer, what we want to deliver to students globally, and then establishing those connections to support those ambitions and that delivery. And really this is a theme throughout all of our Partner Week this week, is just reinforcing our commitment to you as our partners in delivering a great New Zealand education experience globally. And it's embedded the approach that we've taken to innovating to deliver education solutions globally for students. So that is something that we are committed to through the long term, is finding those important and meaningful partnerships with you, so that through your success and the New Zealand education sector success, our students will have a great life experience and great New Zealand education. I'll now pass back to Ewan to talk a little bit more about some specific products and services that we've been developing using this approach.
Thanks, John. So as we were mentioning earlier, New Zealand was shown to have quite a high risk profile when there was a major world disruption or a black swan event, such as COVID. And so we have to really be exploring other ways that we can access learners and be relevant and helpful for our partners. And whilst digital and platforms and websites have been around for a long time, there's quite an opportunity in front of us to match what we can offer as an experience in the education online space to what our learners and increasingly our partners are asking from us. We're using mission-led initiative innovation principles. And those are things around making sure that we're trying to think long-term around some key objectives. So we're not changing with the latest flavor each time that a new piece of technology comes through. And a really big one for us now is, and has always been, that conceptual alignment with wider government. Because it's not just us, of course, in the international education space, trade and enterprise, foreign affairs, the MPI and other government agencies, tourism, of course, are all thinking about how to do this and how to be relevant to learners and other customers when you can't physically travel to New Zealand. So if we can scale that focus, then we're going to have better impact. So one of the pilots that we've been doing, which we're going to be building out in the next year or so, is our evolution of study in New Zealand, which is our destination marketing front shop window, to study with New Zealand. And that's to diversify away from just attracting students and telling learners about what the life experience is in New Zealand, to be able to show our portfolio marketing, which is including online offerings from New Zealand's existing providers, as well as emerging new products as we test them, and of course our pathway offering. So these are all now live, existing on the SINS Study in New Zealand website, and we're going live in late June with the first tranche of the Study with New Zealand to support a global brand campaign, which is coming out Q1, Q2, which is approximately late September, October. So what that means for our partners is that we'll be doing some heavy marketing for brand New Zealand in the education space around late September, October, and that will go through likely until sort of November, December. Its main job is to be driving the preference awareness for New Zealand education and how it's more than just study in. There are options for you at your home, and there are products that we will be able to promote for learners that are actually wanting to study in their home destinations before choosing to come to New Zealand. We also have several prototypes in train, and one's going live, or will be live by the time we have this conference, and it's about testing if there is an online learner demand for a New Zealand offering, New Zealand industry's willingness and capability for putting online first offerings into the global sphere. So we've partnered with a company called FutureLearn. They're a global online learning platform specializing in sort of micro-credential type learning experiences. We've got a theme of sustainability because we do want a bit of focus with this online offering, because one of the critical challenges we have is how can we stand out? You know, how can we actually have an offering that learners will want to choose New Zealand, as opposed to, well, we could just get that same thing from a Harvard or a Oxford or some other competitor. But we've got some credible strengths in the sustainability space, and this pilot has 23 courses out of the box, and we've had our provider, our partner FutureLearn, help with some of our industry providers for a bit of capability building, because some of them had great content but just wasn't quite wrapped into FutureLearn fit for purpose. So we're expecting to get some good learnings out of this, and then this will feed into new product development. So I'll hand over to John now to talk about global pathways.
Thanks very much, Ewan. And as Ewan mentioned, we're really focused on expanding how and where students can access a New Zealand education experience or begin their New Zealand education journey. So Global Pathways really refers to those initiatives that help students to undertake a campus-based learning experience from their home country with the aim of progressing onwards to further study with a New Zealand education institution. And the good news is that we've already got a whole range of options available right now for students to begin their New Zealand study journey. So if we just go through to the next slide, we'll be able to see our Study in New Zealand website. As it sits right now, you can go through to the Study Options tab and click on Global Pathways and see the range of education options that are available to students in your country right at this second. And we have many options that are available. So in this next slide, we show the variety of education products that we have. We have exactly 981 education study options, which are available in more than 180 study locations across more than 30 countries. So we're confident that no matter where or what the student is looking to achieve, we'll have some education study options available for them. The bulk of those study options are pathway qualifications. So that means that once they have achieved that qualification through a recognised education institution in their home country, they will meet the requirements to enter directly into an undergraduate or postgraduate degree program with a New Zealand university. We also have articulation options whereby the learning that the student undertakes with that institution in their home country is recognised and credited towards the achievement of a New Zealand undergraduate or postgraduate qualification, mostly undergraduate degree qualifications. We have joint awards where the student will be able to achieve a qualification from both the partner institution and the New Zealand institution, usually through study undertaken in both countries. And then we have a relatively small number of New Zealand qualifications that are delivered in full within the student's home country. And we're expecting the number of those offerings to increase over the coming months. So as you can see, quite a wide range of study journeys that we're catering for. At this stage, these listings are available for progression onto our university sector, but we're actively exploring how we can expand this offering for students that may be looking to progress towards another part of our New Zealand education sector beyond the study they undertake in their home country. So that's a little bit of what we have on offer right now. In terms of where we're looking to go through to in the future, really our vision and the vision which has been supported by the Education New Zealand Board and by the New Zealand Government through the recovery strategy is to establish New Zealand education centres globally, which will provide an authentic New Zealand education experience internationally. Now, what does that mean? It means that students will be studying education programs that are designed specifically to progress them onwards to further study with a New Zealand education institution. There will be lectures and or research delivered by New Zealand institutions through the centre. The curriculum or the qualifications that students will be studying will have a New Zealand curriculum or curriculum components within them, and that we will be providing an authentic and excellent New Zealand and tikanga Māori experience to support those students to succeed. And we also envisage that these centres will play a role for broader New Zealand outreach into the local communities within which they're based. So we're quite excited about this initiative. And if we just go through to the next slide, you can see a little bit about what we're trying to achieve through the initiative. So really three main things: greater recognition of New Zealand's quality education system and through the physical presence and reputation of the centres. Greater numbers of students progressing onwards to further study in or with New Zealand education providers. And as I mentioned, we see these as part of a broader connection between New Zealand and our counterpart countries in which these centres are based. And where we sit right now is that we've just closed proposals for the first tranche of centres. So we're working with our education institutions to refine the list of centre locations that we'll be looking to establish in 2022 to take initial student intakes. But if you or an institution that you know could be interested in an education centre, we'd love to hear from you, so that can help inform how we expand and scale this initiative over the coming years. So please do reach out if you think your institution or a partner may be a good fit to host a New Zealand education centre. So now just wrapping up our conversation for today, just a message to all of our partners listening in today. These initiatives are really designed to support you and to support your students and our students to access a New Zealand education, regardless of the COVID-19 global travel situation. And so we recognise that students want to get started, want to progress their global education journey. And so these initiatives are really about reflecting that, around meeting that need. But importantly, we also believe that these sorts of education options and these sorts of study journeys are here to stay and will be an increasingly important part of the global education system, and for us will increasingly complement the excellent student experience that we offer within New Zealand. So a final message to our partners, and reflecting the theme of this Partners Week, we welcome your partnership as we progress these sort of initiatives, whether that's through partnering to deliver education solutions for students in your country, whether it's promoting, supporting or counselling students to access these study options. And we know our education institutions are thinking very hard and finding creative ways to incentivise partners to connect students to these sorts of study options. So if you do think you have students that may be interested, please get in touch with the education institution who is offering those education study options. Or more broadly, if you have ideas around education technology or platform solutions that could benefit New Zealand and our education sector, please get in touch with Ewan and I, and we'd love to have those conversations and see what sort of exciting new experiences we can provide to students, however and wherever they might want to start their New Zealand education journey. Thanks very much for spending some time with us today. We'd now love to hear any questions that you may have, so we can discuss those in the remaining time we have in this session. Kia ora.
Kia ora, John and Ewan. Thank you both for joining this live Q&A session. I apologise if anyone can hear some drilling outside my window. But thank you as well to all the attendees for logging in at such an early time across Asia. Your presentation has just talked our attendees through the diversification of New Zealand's international education products and services. And I can see that we do have a few questions coming through. We'll attempt to cover off as many of these as possible in the next 15 minutes. I'll start on this one with Ewan. Could you please elaborate a little more on the new Study with New Zealand tagline? What does that one mean?
Kia ora, Ben, and hello, everyone. So that's an intentional signal that we're moving beyond just study in. So we're wanting to signal to the world and to our learners and partners that we're going to be studying with, and that infers that you can study with New Zealand in your home country, you can study with online or with partners, and that that we can just be relevant, I guess, in this new world that we're in, which is not just about studying physically in New Zealand. Cheers, Ben.
John, I'll head over to you. It's fantastic to see this new raft of pathway programs with New Zealand. Are you able to talk through some of the benefits that our learners can gain from undertaking these pathway programs?
Yes, certainly, and kia ora everybody. Thanks again, Ben. So there are three main benefits that we would promote to students or people looking to counsel students around these study options. First is that they provide flexibility in terms of where a student can access or begin their New Zealand education journey, and also when they choose to transfer onwards to further study with a New Zealand university or education institution, or to travel through to New Zealand. And we recognise that flexibility piece is very important right now, given the current COVID-19 travel situation. The accessibility is the second main reason we would emphasise, is that because we have so many study locations around the world, more than 200 study locations around the world where students can begin this journey, it just means that it's much easier for them to start that journey, and it's much more cost effective. You don't have to invest up front in the travel costs or the accommodation costs that you might otherwise need to if you were looking to head abroad for a study option. So you can find out what's right for you, what sort of qualifications you want to progress onwards to within New Zealand before taking that step and making that investment in your global education experience. And finally, the third reason we'd emphasise is choice. As we mentioned in the presentation, we've got more than 980 individual study options right now live on studyinNewzealand.govt.nz, so feel free to go there right after this presentation. So that means that we can cater for all sorts of student options, all sorts of education subjects that they might be looking to progress through. So yes, we would really recommend that partners and students think about these sort of study options because of the flexibility, accessibility and choice that they provide.
One related question here. Other competitors, New Zealand competitors, have established foreign campuses in Asia. There's a few examples listed here. Would that be something that Education New Zealand or New Zealand's education sector is looking towards in the future?
In short, yes, very much so. So a big focus of our New Zealand Education Centre concept is that we are taking the New Zealand education experience global, but we're also doing that in partnership with prestigious local institutions. So I think that the 2 points of difference I would I've reinforced with the New Zealand Education Centre concept is one that we are combining or forming coalitions with all or most of our universities or most of the education providers in each sector that's participating. So rather than just bringing one New Zealand university experience to someone's home country, we're bringing a whole suite of university experiences. So we'll be providing much more choice for students when they come to a New Zealand Education Centre. And we'll also be partnering with those local institutions. So we'll provide a New Zealand education experience in an environment that's familiar to them, where they can get the support from their home country institution as well. So we look forward to this being a long-term initiative and to rolling out the concept across many countries.
Thanks, John. There's another question here related to costs, which is obviously front of mind for a lot of listeners at the moment. Would taking up dual or joint degree programs help students save costs?
Yes, absolutely. And we recognise this as somewhere where the global education system is going. So students are looking for ways in which they can begin their education, their global education journey in a way that is more cost effective, whether that's saving on accommodation or travel, or looking at a price point that is closer to what's available in their home country. So that's where these sorts of programs do provide the best of both worlds. They give students that accessibility, but they also give them the option and the pathway to progress onwards to a world-class New Zealand education. So we see this sort of student education journey becoming more common and more familiar for students around the world in the coming decades. And so that's why we're forming these partnerships with many of our New Zealand education institutions and with prestigious partners internationally to cater for those needs as well.
Thanks, John. Ewan, I'll come back to you. There's a little bit of interest coming through in terms of the Future Learn initiative. Where can people find out more about that project and some courses that might be of interest to them?
Cheers, Ben. Yeah, so Future Learn, we've got a couple of, we've got a blog post on our study in newzealand.gov.t website. If you go into the blog section, you'll see there's a blog talking about what the Future Learn concept is and some links through to the actual platform itself. Or alternatively, you can go directly to futurelearn.com and search for Study with New Zealand, and you'll find it there. And there's a collection of courses under there, like we talked about in the presentation. Right now, we've had almost a week's worth of data. We've had over 3,000 people enroll and complete those short learn courses from a very wide range of markets, which is really great to see.
Yeah, that's been an incredible amount of feedback and sign up so far. We'll also post those links that Ewan has just mentioned to the discussion forum so people can go and do their own research and have a look for themselves. Thanks, Ewan. Another question here, this is probably for both of you, if you'd like to answer. Which of your new initiatives are centred around exchange and reciprocity?
Yeah, happy to kick off on that one, Ben. So as you would have seen in the presentation, our partnership approach and New Zealand's approach more generally is founded on tukutuku in our Indigenous Māori language, which means reciprocity, or hoko hoko, which refers to trade and exchange. And New Zealand has been a trading and an export nation for many years, which has relied on those two concepts to find our place in the world. And so not just our education system, but our country and our people more generally are founded on being good hosts and good friends to the world. So prior to COVID, international education was our 5th largest export industry. We had more than 100,000 students visiting New Zealand each year, and we're also our largest industry was tourism. So you can see that our ethos and the way our people welcome people to the world is reflected in the importance of those sectors to New Zealand. So it's something that comes very naturally to New Zealanders, and you can see that through the partnerships that we've talked through today, that we're all about finding those areas where we can add value to each other and providing those broader benefits, not just to our students, but to our partners and others that support us. So that's something that will continue to flow through the initiatives and the partnerships we build from here.
Thanks, John. There's obviously a number of institutions and government partners online who I'm sure will be very keen to know that New Zealand is open for collaboration and partnerships. Is that a shift that you have seen, in recent times from the sector with your, close work in the pathways and partnerships space?
Oh, absolutely. And we've seen that globally. I think with COVID-19 and some of the disruptions in the education system, we've seen people from all over the world looking at where they can combine their strengths with other institutions or other governments. And so that's a trend that we see continuing. I think from a New Zealand perspective, what I would say to our partners is that New Zealand is in a unique position in that we have a New Zealand government agency that is front and centre of facilitating those partnerships. So they can take a great deal of confidence that they will be partnering with trusted organisations that will be investing in the partnerships for the longer term. So that's something that not all countries will be able to provide. And so that's why we'd really encourage our partners to reach out if you think that there are opportunities that we can be progressing in the education technology space involving our education institutions or other organisations within our education sector, because that is the mandate of Education New Zealand, is to support and strengthen those partnerships for the longer term.
Great, thanks, John. And for you as well, Ewan, obviously this is an increased focus for New Zealand in terms of the innovative products and certainly the digital products like FutureLearn. Is this the beginning of something bigger? I understand FutureLearn is a pilot project. Will there be more opportunities for learners to engage with New Zealand online in this space?
Cheers, John. Sorry, Ben. Absolutely. Like we've been 90+% of our destination marketing and brand building is online. So we've been doing that for a long time, but enabling the learning experience, the fulfillment of the learning experience, that's definitely an emerging area at a country level. Many of our providers are already doing it, of course, but at a country level, that's really new territory for us. And that is absolutely, like, building on John's point, a long-term strategy for us. And we're actively seeking partners to do that with us. We're not looking to build those sorts of platforms. We're looking to partner, and FutureLearn is an example of that.
Great, thanks, Ewan. And also through some earlier sessions, we had a number of teachers, school leaders wanting to also continue learning and receive training from New Zealand. Is that a possibility with FutureLearn? Do you think obviously not just students, but teachers and other leaders will be able to log in and undertake some training with New Zealand as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I would like to make a point that FutureLearn is an important but early prototype. It's not an indication of a long-term relationship at this point. But yeah, absolutely. We've had strong interest from our vocational entity, Te Pukenga, which is emerging into full being in a year. They're looking at train the trainer. So absolutely, there is, for training workforce, training people to then go on and train others. So absolutely, we're actively looking at that space.
Great. Kia ora, Ewan. We're coming down to about 1:30. We don't have any further questions, but I'll open it to both of you. If there are any final points you'd like to highlight or emphasise for our audience, please feel free to go for it for the next 1:20.
Closing comment from myself would be that we won't be successful without partnership. We know what we're reasonably good at, but we're in no way trying to own the whole experience. We need partners at a global scale to be successful on the global stage. So that's my closing remark. Thank you.
Tēnā nō rākou tau katoa, and thank you to John and Ewan for sharing that update. It's
John,
great to get a sneak peek at the innovative products and services that Education New Zealand
just to reiterate
is currently co-designing with the New
if
Zealand
partners do
education
have
sector.
Concepts or projects
Let's head back to the timeline
that they
now.
would like to progress or get in touch with us about, then please do just get in touch. We'd love
Thank you,
Kia ora
everyone.
koutou.